Can you imagine the shock of waking up one morning, expecting a peaceful retirement after years of serving as governor, only to find your home of 50 years slipping through your fingers because of an HOA president's cunning fraud? That's exactly what happened to me, and oh, how it shook me to my core. When they dared to smash my late wife's memorial bench and sent bulldozers creeping toward my cherished rose garden under the cover of midnight, I couldn't help but wonder, did they have any idea they just tangled with the wrong guy? A governor with a knack for sniffing out corruption. Buckle up, because this tale of betrayal and redemption is one you won't forget, trust me. You'll want to stick around for more HOA dramas like this. It all kicked off with a rude awakening at 7 a.m., the kind of sharp banging on my front door that could jolt anyone out of a deep sleep. I was already dragging from a late-night budget meeting at the governor's office, paperwork and politics. Don't exactly scream restful, do they? Stumbling to the door, I found Barbara Wilson, our new HOA president, standing there with her foot tapping like she owned the place. Her face was all disapproval, and she didn't waste a second. "Governor Williams, your roses are 3 inches taller than regulation height," she barked, brandishing a measuring tape like it was a sword. "This is your 4th violation this month. Don't you think that's a bit much?" I stood there, stunned, my eyes drifting past her to my wife Sarah's rose garden, the one sacred thing I'd vowed to protect after cancer stole her from me last year. For 49 years, every single morning, she'd tended those roses while I sipped my coffee on the porch, her laughter mixing with the breeze. And now, they were a crime against the neighborhood? Unbelievable. "Barbara," I said, forcing calm into my voice despite the fire in my chest, "those roses have been blooming here since 1920, long before your precious HOA even existed in 1990. Did she really think she could rewrite history with a snap of her fingers? She just pushed her flashy designer sunglasses up her nose and shoved a paper into my hands. "New bylaws passed last month, Governor. Maybe if you showed up to meetings, you'd have a say. Your title doesn't make you special around here." Oh, the nerve. I wanted to snap back that I'd missed her little meeting because I was knee-deep in a state emergency, but I bit my tongue. Instead, I watched her strut across my lawn, measuring tape swinging, already zeroing in on poor Tom Patterson's mailbox color. What was her deal? Why was she so determined to nitpick us into submission? That afternoon, as I sifted through a pile of mail, my heart stopped cold. Tucked among the bills was a letter addressed to current resident, not my name, not John Williams, not Governor. How impersonal is that? Inside, an eviction notice screamed that I had 30 days to vacate my own home. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped it. This had to be a mistake, right? There's no way. I grabbed my phone and dialed Tom, my neighbor for 3 decades and a veteran of the original HOA board. "Tom, you get any weird mail today?" I barely got the words out before his voice cut in, urgent and alarmed. "John, thank heavens you called. I just saw your house listed for sale on Zillow. Posted this morning." My stomach plummeted like a stone. "That's impossible," I shouted. "I own this house outright, no mortgage, no liens, nothing." His next words hit like a punch. "Well, somebody thinks differently. The listing agent? Wilson Real Estate Group. Barbara Wilson." Suddenly, it all clicked. Her relentless complaints about my roses, those sneaky new bylaws, this outrageous eviction notice. This wasn't about gardening at all. It was a calculated attack. I tore through my home office, desperation fueling me as I hunted for the original deed. Papers flew everywhere, old speeches, budget reports, love notes from Sarah, until I found it in her meticulous filing system. But wait, what's this? A folded letter slipped out, one I'd never seen before, in her familiar, looping handwriting. "My dearest John," it began, "if you're reading this, something's gone wrong with the house. Check the bottom of my rose garden, 3rd bush from the left. I buried copies of all our important papers there in a waterproof box. You always teased me about being too careful with documents, but I had a feeling we'd need them someday. Oh, Sarah. Even from beyond, she was watching over our home, her love still shielding me. My heart swelled with gratitude and grief. How did she always know? I didn't hesitate. Grabbing a shovel, I rushed to the garden, still in my wrinkled suit from yesterday's meetings. Can you picture it? A governor digging like a madman? As I shoveled beneath her favorite peace rose, Barbara's voice drifted over from next door, smug and chilling. Of course it's legal, she was saying into her phone. The digital transition mixed up some ownership records, and we're just correcting them. By the time anyone figures it out, the sale will be final. She laughed, a cold, heartless sound. Even the governor can't fight City Hall. Oh, really, Barbara? My shovel struck something solid, and there it was, a metal box, just as Sarah promised. Inside, I found our original deed, property surveys, and every HOA document we'd ever signed, including one from 1990 that explicitly protected our garden. Jackpot! Did she think she could outsmart Sarah's foresight? I glanced up and caught Barbara staring from across the fence, her phone call forgotten. For one fleeting moment, her smug mask cracked when she saw the box in my hands. Ha! Gotcha! She spun on her heel, hightailing it back to her house, already dialing someone else. The sun dipped low, painting my home of 50 years in golden hues, its long shadows stretching through Sarah's roses as I clutched those precious documents. This wasn't just about saving my house anymore, was it? How many other neighbors had Barbara swindled with her so-called corrections during this digital transition? And more importantly, how could she be so clueless to think a governor wouldn't know a thing or two about digging into fraud? Oh, she was in for a surprise. I dialed James Martinez, our state attorney, my voice steady despite the storm inside. James, you still hunting for a big real estate fraud case? Well, guess what? I've got a doozy right here in my backyard. As I spoke, I heard Barbara's voice again, now yelling into her phone about emergency HOA meetings and shredding documents. Shredding? Really? For the first time all day, a grin spread across my face. Sarah always said our little Victorian house chose us for a reason, and oh, how right she was. This wasn't just a house, it was a fortress of memories, and I'd fight tooth and nail to protect it. Sleep was impossible after that eviction notice. My mind raced, replaying every detail. I found myself in the basement, where I keep my most important papers, my hands trembling as I opened the old metal box Sarah and I bought when we first moved in. Inside was our 1974 deed, its edges yellowed but the words as clear as ever our names. Our home, our life. Next to it, 50 years of property tax receipts, each one filed with Sarah's careful precision. Oh, how she loved order. She was the one who kept our world steady while I wrestled with state politics. How I missed her now. A loud car door slam snapped me out of my thoughts. Peering through the basement window, I saw a sleek real estate agent's car parked right in front of my house, bold as brass. Tom was out there, still in his pajamas, waving his arms like a windmill to shoo them away. I raced upstairs, clutching the deed, and flung open the front door just as the agent chirped, "The open house is set for this weekend." Open house? Are you kidding me? There's been a mistake, I said, holding up the deed like a shield. I never listed my home for sale. She looked confused, tapping her tablet. Well, according to county records, the Valley Creek HOA listed this property. She turned the screen toward me, and my heart nearly stopped. There was my home, my sanctuary, listed for $850,000, with photos I'd never seen. Who took those? How dare they? I called James at the county records office right away, my voice shaking but determined. While he dug into the files, I rifled through more papers, my mind a whirlwind. Then I found a notice from 6 months ago about the HOA going paperless. Barbara had crowed about how it would simplify everything. Simplify my foot. I hadn't paid much attention back then. State budget crises don't exactly leave room for HOA nonsense, do they? Tom showed up with his laptop. Bless him, he's a wizard with computers, unlike me. Together, we pulled up the HOA's new online system, and what we found made my blood run cold. According to their database, I transferred my deed to the HOA during the digital transition. Transferred? Me? I never signed a thing, I roared, my voice echoing in the quiet house. Tom's face was grim as he scrolled further. John, it's not just you. Look, 5 other homes in our neighborhood, all with similar transfers, all owned by folks here for decades. Every one of them had faced Barbara's petty complaints, yards, paint colors, you name it. This was no coincidence. It was a pattern, a scheme, and we were caught in its web. My phone buzzed James from county records. Governor, something's off, he said, his tone deadly serious. The digital deed shows a signature from 3 months ago, but you were giving a speech in the Capitol that day. I've got the video to prove it. Oh, Barbara, did you really think you could forge my name and get away with it? The pieces were falling into place faster now, each one more infuriating than the last. Barbara's real estate company, Wilson Real Estate Group, was behind every shady move: the Rose complaints, the bylaws, the fake deed transfers. This wasn't just harassment, it was theft, plain and simple. I paced the living room, clutching Sarah's letter, feeling her strength flow through me. How many others had she targeted? How many homes had she stolen with her digital tricks? My security team called next, reporting someone snooping around, taking pictures of my house, claiming it was for HOA renovations. Renovations I never approved. Oh, the audacity. As I scribbled notes, an email from Barbara popped up, dripping with fake sweetness. Just a reminder, Governor, the HOA has full authority to maintain community standards. We've got a lovely young couple lined up for this weekend sale. They appreciate proper lawn care, unlike some residents. The nerve of her, calling me out like that? I stared out the window, catching sight of more cars pulling up, people with clipboards, directed by Barbara herself, her smirk as sharp as ever. Did she think she'd won already? Not on my watch. This wasn't just about my home anymore. It was about justice, about protecting my neighbors, about honoring Sarah's legacy. I'd spent years fighting for what's right in the governor's office, and I wasn't about to let some HOA tyrant tear it all down. Can you believe the audacity of it all? Here I was, a retired governor, thinking I'd finally earned some peace in my home of 50 years, only to uncover a sinister plot that threatened everything I held dear. When Tom pointed to his laptop screen, his voice trembling with disbelief, my heart sank. "Look at this, John," he exclaimed, his finger jabbing at the evidence. 5 other homes in our quiet little neighborhood homes, owned by folks who'd poured decades of love into them, had been hit with the same shady deed transfers as mine. Each one tied to Barbara Wilson's relentless complaints about their yards or paint colors over the past year. Was this really happening? How could someone be so bold? Just then, my phone buzzed, and James, my old friend at the county records office, came through with a tone that stopped me cold. "Governor," he said, his voice heavy with suspicion, "something's seriously wrong here. That digital deed shows your signature from 3 months ago, but I've got video of you giving a speech in the Capitol that same day." Oh, Barbara, did you really think you could forge my name and slip it past me? The hits kept coming, didn't they? My security team called next, their urgency crackling through the line. They'd caught someone sneaking around my property, snapping photos like they owned the place. When confronted, the guy had the nerve to claim he was measuring for renovations. I never approved. Can you imagine? I was scribbling all this down, my mind racing, when an email from Barbara popped up, dripping with fake charm. "Just a reminder, Governor," she wrote, "the HOA has full authority to maintain community standards. We've got a lovely young couple lined up for this weekend sale. They appreciate proper lawn care, Unlike some residents, the gall of her, throwing shade at me while trying to steal my home. The pieces were snapping together, and oh, what an ugly picture they painted. Barbara's real estate company was behind every one of these shady transfers, targeting longtime residents with her petty complaints, all orchestrated under the guise of a digital transition. My years in politics had taught me to spot a con, and this one had Barbara's fingerprints all over it. Through my window, I caught movement in the fading light, more cars pulling up, their headlights slicing through the dusk. There she was, Barbara herself, directing a crew with clipboards toward my front porch, like she was staging a takeover. She glanced up, saw me watching, and flashed that same infuriating smirk she'd worn at last week's HOA meeting when she griped about my roses. Did she think she'd already won? Not today, Barbara. My phone buzzed again, a text from Linda Thompson, our HOA secretary, her words laced with urgency. Governor, check your email now. There's something about the records transfer you need to see, but please, don't let Barbara know I sent it. My heart pounded. What was she hiding? The emergency HOA meeting was electric with tension when I walked in. I ditched my usual suit and tie, can you picture it? Me, the governor, striding in with dirt-stained gardening clothes, fresh from tending Sarah's roses one last time. Barbara's face turned beet red at the sight of me, her lips pursing like she'd bitten a lemon. Oh, she hated that I never stopped tending my garden, even after all my years in office. I took my seat in the front row, setting my old leather briefcase on the floor with a quiet thud. Inside, every scrap of proof that I'd owned my home since 1973 documents, Sarah and I had guarded like treasure. Tom, my neighbor for decades, sat beside me, his hand squeezing my shoulder in silent support. The room buzzed with nervous whispers. Nobody had ever seen an emergency meeting called so fast. What was Barbara up to now? She took her place at the podium, her fancy red blazer screaming money, her manicured nails tapping impatiently. Governor Williams, she sneered, spitting my title like it was dirt. I assume you're here to discuss the property situation? That fake smile of hers, the one she'd flashed every time she complained about my garden hose being visible, made my skin crawl. You could say that, I shot back, channeling the calm Sarah taught me during my first campaign. I'm here because you're trying to sell my home without my permission. The room fell deathly silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Barbara's smile twisted, sharper now, more dangerous. She yanked a thick stack of papers from her designer bag, waving them like a weapon. Actually, she purred, our new digital records show you haven't owned that property since last year's database update. Excuse me? Was she serious? I stood slowly, my knees creaking, but my resolve rock solid. Barbara, I said, patting my briefcase, I've lived in that house for 50 years. I've got every document since 1973 right here. You can't just type something into a computer and steal my home. Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't miss a beat. Oh, but I can, she snapped, flourishing her papers. Our system update found irregularities. Your property wasn't properly registered under the new HOA guidelines, so ownership defaulted to the association. The neighbors erupted in murmurs, their shock mirroring mine. Miss S. Rodriguez from across the street shot to her feet. That's absurd, she cried. John's been here longer than anyone. Barbara slammed her gavel down bomb, silencing the room. Rules are rules, she barked. If you don't register your property during a system update, you forfeit your rights. It's all in Section 47B of the new bylaws. That's when I let myself smile, reaching into my briefcase with deliberate calm. Funny you mentioned those bylaws, Barbara, I said, pulling out a worn document. I've got the original HOA agreement from 1980 right here, and it says any changes to registration rules need a 75% homeowner vote. I held up another paper, my ace in the hole. And guess what? County records show no such vote ever happened. Oh, the look on her face. Barbara's cheeks drained of color, her hands fumbling through her papers like a cornered animal. That's not relevant, she stammered. The digital transition supersedes the law? Boomed a voice from the back. James Martinez, my state attorney pal, stepped forward, his presence commanding. I'd love to hear how a computer database trumps 50 years of legal records. Barbara's hands shook like leaves in a storm. This meeting is adjourned, she squeaked, grabbing her papers and bolting for the podium's edge. But in her panic, one sheet slipped free, fluttering to the floor. Tom snatched it before she could lunge back. Hold on, he shouted, his voice rising in disbelief. This is a sale contract for John's house dated 3 months ago. You've been planning this since January. The room exploded, neighbors shouting, questions flying. Barbara backed away, her cool facade crumbling as she fumbled with her phone, fingers racing across the screen, deleting emails. No doubt, but she didn't know Linda had already backed everything up. Barbara, I called, my voice slicing through the chaos. I signed an executive order this morning for a state task force on housing fraud. Care to guess who's leading it? Her eyes widened in terror, and she bolted for the door, her high heels clacking like gunfire. But James was quicker, and 2 police officers waited in the lobby. Her designer bag hit the floor, papers spilling everywhere, clues to a scheme bigger than any of us imagined. Tom grabbed the gavel she'd abandoned. I move we vote to oust Barbara Wilson as HOA president, he roared. Every hand shot up unanimous. But deep down, I knew this was only the start. Back in my study, I pored over the evidence we'd gathered, my mind churning. Something wasn't right. Barbara was too meticulous for such a sloppy paper trail. Then came a soft knock, and Linda Thompson slipped in, her eyes red with tears, clutching a USB drive like it was a lifeline. Governor, she whispered, shutting the door. I can't sleep anymore. Barbara didn't just target you, there's so much more. My security team checked the drive for safety, and when I plugged it in, my blood ran cold. Spreadsheets, fake deeds, property records, all organized by date and neighborhood. Barbara wasn't just after my home. She'd been quietly seizing properties across the entire county. I called Tom, who lived next to 3 houses her company had snatched up. He rushed over with his daughter Sarah, a sharp data analyst who'd been sniffing around the neighborhood's records for months. Oh, what a team we were becoming. Can you even fathom the betrayal that hit me like a freight train? Here I was, a governor who thought he'd seen it all, only to uncover a scheme so heartless it threatened to rip apart our entire community. When Sarah, Tom's brilliant daughter, leaned toward her laptop, her voice sharp with urgency, my stomach twisted. Look at this pattern, Governor, she exclaimed, pointing to the screen like it was a map to a crime scene. Every single target is either elderly, swamped with work and blind to paperwork changes, or living out of state. Barbara's company swoops in, slaps them with HOA violations, and then poof discovers ownership issues. How could someone be so cruel? Linda's hands shook like leaves as she pulled up more files, her eyes wide with dread. I started keeping records 5 years ago when Barbara joined the HOA board, she said, her voice cracking. At first, it was just odd stuff, meeting minutes rewritten, complaint forms from certain homeowners vanishing into thin air. But then, I noticed property documents disappearing from our files. Disappearing? Really, Barbara? Did she think no one would notice? Tom was pacing my study like a caged lion, his face growing redder by the second. Remember the Andersons? He growled, his voice thick with anger. 40 years they lived here. Barbara claimed they agreed to sell because of HOA violations. Can you believe that? They moved to Florida last year, hearts broken, thinking they had no choice. My hand reached for my phone, ready to call for backup, but Linda grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly fierce. Wait, Governor, there's more, she whispered, her eyes darting to the door. Barbara's got a whole network, real estate agents, contractors, even someone at the county records office. They're all in on it. A network? My mind reeled. How deep did this go? Sarah clicked open another document, and my heart stopped dead. A list of future targets, 30 more homes in our neighborhood, alone. Next to each address, cold, calculated notes about the owner's weaknesses. And there, beside my name, the words that cut like a knife, too busy with state duties to notice changes. Wife deceased. Emotional attachment to property makes proper legal review unlikely. They'd been studying me, dissecting my life, using Sarah's memory against me. I thought of our rose garden, the one she and I planted when we first moved in. Its blooms a testament to our love. Barbara didn't target it for some silly HOA rule. Oh no. She knew it would drown me in grief and rage, distracting me while she schemed to steal my home. How dare she? Linda's voice trembled as she showed us emails revealing Barbara's next play. She's planning to present evidence at next week's HOA meeting, she said, her fingers fumbling with the screen. She'll claim several residents failed to transfer their deeds during the digital transition like, it's just a clerical error to be fixed. Sarah leaned in, her eyes blazing. But here's the kicker, she said, pointing to her laptop. I checked the county records myself. None of these ownership changes went through legal channels. Barbara's been forging parallel paperwork that looks legit but isn't registered anywhere. She's betting no one will double check. Betting against us? Oh, Barbara, you picked the wrong fight. Tom stopped pacing, his eyes narrowing as he spotted something chilling. Check the dates, John, he said, his voice low and furious. Every takeover attempt happened during major state events when you were swamped with work and couldn't focus on neighborhood drama. I sank back in my chair, the full scope of her game hitting me like a tidal wave. Barbara wasn't just stealing homes, she was building an empire right under our noses, exploiting our trust in the HOA. This wasn't about my house anymore, was it? It was about saving our whole community before she tore it apart. Linda stood taller, her fear morphing into fiery resolve. I've got everything, Governor, she declared, her voice steady now. Every email, every fake document, every secret meeting recording. I've been saving them for years, waiting for someone strong enough to take her down. I looked around at my allies, Linda's fierce determination, Tom's burning anger, Sarah's razor-sharp focus. Barbara might have money and connections, but we had truth and community on our side. Did she really think she could outmaneuver a governor with the state's power behind him? She was about to learn what happens when you mess with people's homes. Sarah's laptop pinged, snapping us to attention. Emergency HOA meeting tomorrow night. She gasped, her eyes wide. Barbara just called it. We exchanged glances, the air thick with tension. This was it, the moment of truth. Were we ready to spring our trap, or was Barbara about to pull one last trick? My heart raced, but I felt Sarah's strength guiding me. She'd always believed in fighting for what's right. I was just settling into bed, trying to calm my nerves, when my phone buzzed like an angry hornet. It was Tom, his voice shaking with panic. John, they're here with bulldozers. Bulldozers? At this hour? I bolted to my window, my breath catching as I saw yellow machines lumbering down my street like monsters in the dark. My security team was already on it, their flashlights slicing through the night as they cornered 3 guys in construction gear. The HOA president gave us permission, one of them claimed, waving a document that looked official. Official, my foot! I'd signed enough papers as governor to spot a fake a mile away, and this one was a joke. Even from my window, I could see the sloppy forgery. My hands trembled as I dialed the police, but my voice held steady. Years of handling state crises had taught me that trick. While waiting, I fired up my laptop and started live streaming from my security cameras. If Barbara wanted to play dirty, she'd do it with the whole world watching. The cops rolled in fast, their lights flashing silently. Officer Rodriguez, a local kid who'd grown up here, glanced at the paperwork and shook his head, barely hiding a grin. This authorization's dated for next week, he said. Next week? Barbara didn't even check her own forgeries? Sloppy. I thought that was the end of it. Was I wrong? The next morning, as my security team swapped shifts, something caught my eye through the kitchen window. There was Barbara, bold as brass, standing by Sarah's memorial bench, yapping on her phone. Before I could storm outside, she vanished, but what she left behind shattered me more than any bulldozer could. Sarah's bench where she'd read stories to our grandkids, her laughter filling the air, was smashed to bits. The bronze plaque with her name, gone. Our favorite quote about love and roses, scratched out. 50 years of memories lay in ruins, marble pieces scattered across my lawn like broken dreams. How could she do this? Tom's back door slammed, and he came running, phone in hand, recording the wreckage. Linda joined us from across the street, tears streaming down her face. "I caught it all on my security camera," she cried, pulling up the footage. Barbara did this herself not even an hour ago. But then Linda gasped, zooming in on her screen. There in the background, barely visible behind Barbara, was a man I knew, the developer who'd been eyeing our block for years. They were poring over papers, pointing at houses on our street like vultures circling prey. What were they planning next? My security team found 3 hidden cameras around my property, all linked to some shady IP address. Barbara wasn't just harassing me, she'd been stalking my every move, learning when my home was vulnerable. I sat in my garden, surrounded by the ruins of Sarah's bench, a fire igniting inside me. She didn't know about the camera I'd left in Sarah's old birdhouse, too sentimental to remove. Or the GPS tracker my team had slipped onto her car after her first threats. Or that her phone kept connecting to my guest Wi-Fi, logging every visit. Gotcha, Barbara! As I gathered the broken marble, my phone lit up with messages from neighbors. Barbara had been busy, slapping condemned notices on every home owned by someone over 60. But oh, she'd made a fatal mistake. Those notices bore the official state seal. My seal. I looked at the shards of Sarah's bench, hearing her voice in my mind. Everything happens for a reason, John. Maybe she was right. Barbara thought she was erasing evidence, but she'd handed me the key to her downfall, proof of impersonating state officials. Did she really think she could outsmart us all? Not today, not ever. Can you imagine the sheer audacity of thinking you could outsmart a whole community and a governor who spent decades fighting for justice? Oh, how wrong Barbara Wilson was. That evening, as I stood watching the sunset bathe my rose garden in a golden glow, Sarah's roses, the ones she loved so fiercely, my phone buzzed with a sharp alert from my security system. Barbara was back. Can you believe it? She strutted onto my property with a whole posse in fancy suits, acting like she owned the place. But then, oh, the look on her face. She spotted the state police cars parked quietly along the street, their presence like a silent promise of justice. Her smug grin vanished, replaced by a dawning horror. Did she finally realize what her greed had done? She hadn't just tangled with an old man who cherished his garden, she'd declared war on a governor who knew exactly how to fight back. Oh, Barbara, you picked the wrong battle. The next morning kicked off with a jolt sirens, loud and commanding, not the usual hum of my security detail. I was savoring my morning coffee, the steam curling up in the crisp air, when 3 state police cars screeched to a halt at Barbara's house across the street. My heart raced. What was happening now? Tom, my neighbor of 30 years, came barreling over, still in his bathrobe, his coffee sloshing dangerously. "John, you won't believe this," he shouted, thrusting his phone at me. The screen lit up with the HOA's financial records, and my jaw dropped. Money transfers to offshore accounts, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Barbara wasn't just stealing homes. She was running a full-blown criminal empire right under our noses. How could she be so brazen? I stepped onto my porch, my coffee still warm in my hands, and watched as Barbara emerged from her house. Can you picture it? There she was, still in her designer pajamas, that gaudy pearl necklace she always bragged about glinting in the morning light, her nose tilted up like she ruled the neighborhood. Even as the officers read her rights, cuffing her hands behind her back, she kept that haughty air until the breeze mussed her perfect hair. "This is ridiculous," she shrieked, her voice echoing down the street. "Do you know who I am? I'm friends with Senator Parker." I couldn't help but chuckle. "Parker? That guy lost his seat last year in his own scandal." "Oh, Barbara, did you really think name-dropping would save you now?" Neighbors started spilling out of their homes, some in bathrobes, others dressed for work but too stunned to leave. Mrs. Johnson from number 42 was there, her hands trembling as she recorded the whole scene on her phone. Barbara had threatened to fine her just last month for her wheelchair ramp, called it an eyesore. Can you imagine the cruelty? Agent Rodriguez, the state investigator, strode over to me, his face grim but determined. "Governor," he said, handing me a thick folder that felt heavy with truth. 3 counties, 17 neighborhoods, over 40 homes targeted. It's the same pattern every time. Digital records tampered with, sudden eviction notices, quick sales to Barbara's real estate company, and massive profits from flipping the properties. My heart sank. 40 homes? Your home wasn't the first, Rodriguez added, his voice softening, but it'll be the last. We've got evidence stretching back 5 years. Some folks lost everything. Everything? How could one person cause so much pain? News vans rolled in Channel 5, then Channel 9, their cameras swarming like bees. Barbara caught sight of them and flipped her script. "Governor Williams orchestrated this whole thing," she screamed, mascara streaking down her face like a bad movie villain. "He's trying to ruin me before the election. Ask him about the bribes." "Bribes? Oh, please." I stayed cool on my porch, sipping my coffee, my calm a stark contrast to her meltdown. The reporters glanced at me, then at Barbara being loaded into a police car, then back at me. They knew who to trust. 20 years in public service had taught me one unshakable truth. Lies crumble, but the truth always rises. Did she really think she could smear me and walk away? Linda arrived, hauling boxes stuffed with documents, her face weary but glowing with pride. "I've been collecting evidence for months," she told the officers, her voice steady despite the exhaustion in her eyes. Every fake document, every altered record, every illegal sale, Barbara thought she could hide it all. She targeted older residents, figuring they wouldn't check their digital records. Older residents? Like me? Like Miss S. Johnson? Like so many others who'd built lives here? More police cars zoomed off, headed for Barbara's real estate office downtown. Tom clapped my shoulder, his grip warm and grounding. "Sarah would be so proud, John," he said softly. "She always said your stubbornness would save the day, didn't she? Oh, Sarah, how I wish she could see this." Her belief in me was the fire that kept me going. By noon, the investigation was a wildfire, unstoppable and fierce. We learned Barbara's company was linked to similar scams in 2 other states too. The FBI was jumping in now, and my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Governors, senators, even the attorney general all calling to weigh in on the scandal rocking our state. Barbara's final words as the police car door slammed shut were a desperate jab about my re-election campaign. She thought this was all about politics. Can you believe the delusion? She never grasped what really mattered: home, community, doing what's right. Those were the stakes, not some power grab. I gazed at my rose garden, its blooms defiant despite everything. Sarah's broken memorial bench lay nearby, a wound that still stung, but our home of 50 years stood tall, its Victorian charm untouched by Barbara's schemes. A young reporter approached, microphone in hand, eager for a scoop. "Governor, what's next for your campaign?" she asked. I smiled, thinking of the retirement papers sitting unsigned on my desk at the Capitol. Barbara assumed I was clinging to power, but as I watched her police car disappear, I knew this fight was never about that. The real question burned brighter. How many other Barbaras were out there, preying on good people just trying to live peacefully in their homes? How could we stop them all? Tomorrow, I'd head to the Capitol for a big announcement, but today was for my roses and rebuilding Sarah's bench piece by piece, just like we'd rebuild our community. The morning sun warmed my face as I knelt in my garden, planting a new Sarah's Love rose bush. My hands weren't as steady as they used to be. Age catches up, doesn't it? But every flower I set into the soil felt like a tiny triumph. Tom strolled over, two steaming coffee mugs in hand, his grin as wide as the horizon. "Can you believe it, John?" he said, passing me a cup. "Barbara Wilson behind bars. The news is calling it the biggest real estate scam in state history." The biggest? No wonder the story had gripped everyone. I laughed softly, remembering how this all started a petty dispute over my roses. The media trucks had finally cleared my driveway yesterday, after 3 relentless weeks of camping out. Seems folks can't resist a tale about a corrupt HOA president trying to steal a governor's house. Linda joined us, a thick folder under her arm, her new role as HOA president suiting her like a glove. She sat on Sarah's new memorial bench, smooth, sturdy, a symbol of our fight, and opened the folder. "You won't believe what we dug up," she said, her eyes sparkling. Barbara pulled the same stunt in 3 other neighborhoods before ours. She'd target older residents, mess with records during tech upgrades, then force quick sales through her company. 3 neighborhoods? How had she gotten away with it for so long? Mike, my security detail, approached with his morning report, his face serious but proud. "Sir, we found 28 more victims statewide," he said. "The FBI's all over it now." He hesitated, then added, "Oh, and Mrs. Wilson's trying to cut a deal with prosecutors." "A deal?" I shook my head, picturing Barbara's face when they arrested her, screaming about conspiracies, swearing she'd expose my corrupt administration. What she never understood was that my whole career was about fighting people like her bullies who thought they were above the law. Did she really think she could scare me? The neighborhood kids zipped by on their bikes, shouting, "Hey, Governor Bill," with cheerful waves. Little Annie, just 2 doors down, pedaled over and handed me a card, her shy smile melting my heart. Inside, a crayon drawing of my rose garden with our hero scrawled across it. Can you imagine anything sweeter? My phone buzzed again, State Attorney General, asking me to testify at Barbara's trial next month. Part of me wanted to say no, to sink into the quiet retirement I'd earned. But then I glanced at Sarah's new bench, remembering how Barbara's goons had smashed the original, shattering memories we'd built over decades. No way was I backing down now. I had to see this through for Sarah, for our neighbors, for justice. Tom helped me to my feet, my knees groaning in protest. "What would Sarah say about all this?" he asked, his smile knowing. "She'd laugh till she cried," I replied, running my hand along the bench's smooth wood. "Then she'd tell me to quit moping and plant more roses." Linda spread papers across the bench, her excitement infectious. "Check out our new HOA bylaws," she said. "Full digital transparency, triple verification for record changes, mandatory resident votes on big decisions." She tapped one section proudly. "We're calling it the Williams Rule." The Williams Rule? My throat tightened, but I blinked back tears. Sarah always said crying was just the heart-watering hope, and oh, was hope blooming now. Families Barbara had swindled were moving back, their homes restored. Our community was knitting itself back together, stronger than ever. As the morning stretched on, more neighbors stopped by, each with a story of Barbara's cruelty, her threats, her schemes, the helplessness they'd felt. But now they shared tales of victory, of justice, of standing together. My rose garden had become a beacon, each petal a testament to fighting corruption, one flower at a time. I looked at my home, its Victorian charm untouched despite Barbara's best shots. Sometimes the biggest battles start in the smallest places, don't they? A garden, a bench, a home, and sometimes just refusing to give up changes everything. Standing there with my neighbors, the roses catching the morning light like tiny flames, I realized this was bigger than saving my house. It was about guarding the places and people we love, about facing down bullies who think they're untouchable. I grabbed my gardening tools, ready to plant another rose bush. After all, I had more flowers to tend and a community to rebuild, one rooted in hope, justice, and the memory of Sarah's love.